Micaela Kennedy.
And I'm Kalin March. We're in the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10 o'clock a.m. class, and we will be presenting Chapter 13, Kinds of Visual Aids.
The different kinds of visual aids include objects, but you don't want to pass around an object because the audience might get lost in it and not pay attention to you as much. You can use photos or drawings, but you don't want to clutter up a slide on a PowerPoint. You can also use graphs like bar, line, or pie, charts. You can use videos if you want to. The speaker as well can be its own visual aid, or you could use a PowerPoint by itself.
What's important to remember is that preparation for using your visual aids is critical. So prepare them well in advance, so that way you have time to practice with them and you're familiar with what you will be using and presenting to the audience. Another thing to keep in mind is that you don't want it to be complicated. You want it to be simple to convey to the audience. So keep it simple and keep it clear. Next, you want it to be large enough to where the audience can clearly see it from any point in the room. Positioning is also important, as you don't want somebody in the back right corner not to be able to see it at all, and somebody in the left back corner to see it perfectly. You want everybody to have an equal chance to see your visual aid. Another thing that's important is keep the text limited. You don't want too much text because then you'll lose them in the text. They'll read it instead of listen to you, and this is important. Another thing that's important to keep in mind would be to use effective fonts, because some fonts are fancy and they may look nice, and you might even enjoy writing with them on your own time. But just like in a paper, you wouldn't use a cursive font because it's hard to read and it's distracting. You wouldn't want to do that in a presentation either, where the main point is to hear you speak and present. Also, color can be crucial. You don't want clashing colors, and you don't want colors that are too hard to see. You want contrast, and you want it to be very solid and simple and easy to pay attention to. Next, use images strategically. You don't want to have an image of a buffalo if you're talking about a bear, for example. And lastly, we're going to present guidelines for presenting these visual aids. Display them in the line of sight of the audience. Like I said before, you want to make sure everybody in the audience has the chance to see your visual aids. Also, you don't want to pass around the visual aid. This can be a distraction, and also it could be broken, torn, or lost. Also, display them only while you're talking about them. Otherwise, you're going to lose the audience in what the visual aid for the previous topic was, instead of what you're currently saying and trying to convey to the audience. And explain them clearly and concisely. You don't want it to be unclear why your visual aid is up. You want it to be clear, concise, and really apparent as to why this visual aid is effective and necessary in conveying exactly what it is you're trying to tell the audience. And you want to talk to the audience, not the visual aid, because it's the audience that you're engaging. The visual aid is there to help you speak to the audience. And practice. Practice is absolutely critical when you're presenting, even if you're not using visual aids. But with visual aids is especially important, because timing and also the discussion of the aid itself, you want to be familiar with it. And lastly, you want to check the room and equipment before you present, so that way you know of any mechanical errors or technicalities that may become a problem. Thank you very much. Have a good weekend.